You're tuned in to KEXP, yes indeed, KEXP.org. I'm Larry Mizell Jr. I'm live right here in the live room right now with Dayton's own Brainiac. Thank y'all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. I know you got some classic music for us right now. If you get into it. It's Brainiac, live on KEXP. You just heard Vincent Come On Down from Hissing Prigs and Static Couture. Brainiac, live on KEXP. That was Mr. Fingers from 1997's Electroshock for President. Yes, live on KEXP, it's Brainiac. That was This Little Piggy from Hissing Prigs in Static Couture. I love that title. It's Brainiac live on KEXP. That was To the Baby Counter from 1994's Bonsai Superstar. And they got just one more. Brainiac live on KEXP. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Pleasure's all ours.
Man, it's so good to have y'all here. You guys have always been such outliers, and it's wonderful to see y'all doing your thing. I know a lot of listeners know Brainiac. You guys hung it up back in '97 after the tragic passing of Tim Taylor. I'm curious, what were the circumstances that brought y'all back together and reconvened Brainiac?
Well, I mean, it was kind of baby steps, but there was a kind of a charity event in Dayton that we came together to play some of the songs and had some guest singers and stuff like that that was going on. It was a kind of a yearly thing with other local bands that had, stop playing, come back together for a reunion type stuff. And so we did that. And there was a documentary by a local guy named Eric Mahoney. And through doing the documentary of us guys getting together and being interviewed and hanging out more again and stuff like that, it was a really good experience for all of us and Tim's mom as well. Right. And so I guess just from there, things just kind of started to come together, and we talked about it. There was another basically event in New York that was part of the documentary, which a bunch of friends' bands participated in, and then the documentary came out, and a lot of people saw it. A lot of newer people that didn't know about us before saw it, and during the pandemic, there were some archival releases that I assembled from some demos and basically like unreleased things, and a compilation record and stuff like that that Touch and Go, our old label, put out. And honestly, the thing that we played a few shows, and then there was a last release called Predator Nominate.
Yeah.
And I saw the guys in Mogwai. Stuart participated in the documentary, and he suggested basically that we wanted to open for them in the UK. And so that was kind of really the spark that got us playing a lot of shows. And the reaction was really great. Everybody was like, so happy we were playing, and we played a few shows. We played our own show in London, and there were just a lot of young, enthusiastic fans that we thought we were going to be seeing. We did see a lot of old friends and people we knew from back in the day, but it was just really cool to see that there was still spirit in our music and people appreciating it to this day. So
I love that, and I love that documentary, Brainiac Transmissions After Zero, it came out back in 2019, that kind of occasioned this inertia towards, getting back out there and doing your thing and doing these songs. How did it feel to, like, I'm sure there was a moment where you're all sitting in a theater watching this documentary and hearing people speak about you. How was that?
Terrifying.
Surreal, honestly. Yeah, we all of us had we were at South by Southwest when it premiered.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's hard to see the story about yourself and have much perspective on it. But like I said, I think for us the value was all the stuff that went into making it and the conversations that we had. And I know especially for Tim's mom, it was a real healing salve, and all the love that poured out after that, from fans and stuff like that. So
that's a beautiful thing. I wondered if you would talk to me about Dayton. I've always been really fascinated by Dayton, Ohio. Some of my favorite artists of all time are from there. Kim Deal, of course, who I know you guys worked with, produced one of your records. The Breeders, Guided by Voices. And then there's just an incredible cadre of funk artists that came from Dayton, from the likes of Zapp, Slave, Phaso. Is it Bootsy? No. He's from Ohio, though.
Yeah,
Cincinnati, right. I'm curious about the scene and the kind of community and the sounds you guys were hearing as you were kind of coming up and fomenting what would be Brainiac.
We've been talking about this a bit. We did a few interviews, and I think the funny common thing, it was a good place to grow up as far as rent was inexpensive, and there's Wright Pat Air Force Base and General Motors there. So there was like a really big, I think we benefited a lot actually from the funk community of the 70s and 80s, because the pawn shops and stuff like that had loads of keyboards and the music stores, etc. So we gobbled those up, and Tim here, I moved away after the band ended, but Tim has still continued to collect all those treasures in their various places. But also it's, people are always like, what is it about Dayton? And if you go there, searching for gold or something like that, it's kind of a boring place, and that's sort of what the magic is, I think, is that creating something out of your own enthusiasm, and that sort of like being still and being bored and then being creative.
That's an important recipe. I think that brought a lot of creativity out of the Pacific Northwest back in the day as well.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about kind of that wealth of equipment you're finding in shops and stuff. That's part of what always kind of set Brainiac apart too, is the use of synths and keyboards and the vocal effects. How did those kind of come into play? Because that, again, this kind of made you guys an outlier among contemporaries.
I think partially it was sort of just going to the stores and seeing all those keyboards and not really knowing what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Partially, Tim and I had been in sort of like, we tried to be in a goth band that was more just like a name that never really played out. But so I think those two things. And then I remember specifically at the time just listening to some of that late 70s David Bowie stuff. Mm-hmm. And somehow we were like, oh, we're going to be like the Stooges with this kind of David Bowie keyboard thing. But we didn't really know what that meant. I think initially we got the the keyboards, I was just going to play like bass parts on them, but I couldn't really do it. So Tim just sort of took over and just made it into what it was. But it was just a series of kind of happy accidents, as they say, that got us there with some kind of, we had some ideas of that we wanted to do these things, but we didn't really know what it was going to be until it was,
Tyler and I were in a hardcore band in high school, and I remember seeing Tim actually lived with a guy I was later in a band with, and I would see these guys at the shows and stuff, and like they had kind of a more like 70s like glamish look at the time, and the music they made was nothing like Brainiac. And so when I went away to college and I knew Tyler had started playing with them and stuff, like, I mean, to make the leap from the music they were making to Brainiac to me was like really remarkable. So yeah,
I love that. And I have to ask, how is it singing these songs that Tim used to sing, that you processing it vocally now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this too. I feel like, especially sort of the baby steps toward getting there, I didn't, like, for me, playing the guitar, playing my parts and singing seemed totally inconceivable. But I think about it more like I'm just being a vessel for these songs. I've been singers in my own bands and stuff like that, and so I don't really think about it being me. I'm just performing the songs. So if anything, it's harder to wrap my head around them. It's great that Tim is also singing, so that those are kind of some of my favorite parts of the set, when I can just play the parts that I used to play,
Right on.
But yeah.
I actually really loved the trade-off y'all had going on. That's really nice energy.
Thank you.
And are you going to continue that into some new music? Is that on the table?
Well, never say never, but I mean, a lot of people have, that's part of the other really amazing part about this. People are like, are you guys going to keep playing shows and stuff? Or more likely, like, will you please keep playing shows? And then, yeah, people have asked us, if we're going to make new music and stuff. And so that's just kind of insane, really. Like, we never, I think what's really great about this is that it's been so organic. We walked away from the band when Tim died, and I really think it kind of took this long to be, oddly, twice our age then, and to have the maturity and perspective to be able to bring it, So yeah, we're thinking about it, but nothing yet.
Well, we all hope that is the case. Thank y'all for coming through, and man, Godspeed. I know you got some more shows. I know you played last night here in Seattle. How was that?
Fantastic.
Right on.
All these shows went better than I think any of us would have expected, so.
There you go. You see Brainiac coming to your town, go check him out. Thank y'all again for coming here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. KEXP listener powered. You make it happen. You make artists like this and these sessions happen every day. You can go check it out on the YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make your gift to KEXP and power independent music just like Brainiac. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Larry Mizell Jr. This is KEXP.org. Discover new music at KEXP.org.